A Goofy movie is 30 years old. Oh my stars. Hold on, I need a costume. There. You don't see it? Let me help you out. I basically look like Roxanne. This is how the Goofy movie is a Broadway musical. Seriously, it is. Stay tuned. Hello! Welcome back to the Spoonie Stitcher channel. I'm Shannon the Spoonie Stitcher, you're inside the Stitchery, and I'm so happy you're here today. If you're new, hi! I'm Shannon. I'm the Spoonie Stitcher. A Spoonie is somebody who has a chronic condition, and a Stitcher is somebody who makes art with textiles. This channel is all about creativity. Anything that makes your creative juices flowing, that's what we try to do on this channel. We've got baking, we've got cooking, we've got art, we've got crafting, we've got stuff with textiles, we've got animation, movie talk, all kinds of stuff on this channel. So if that sounds like something that sounds fun to you, maybe hit the subscribe button. Oh wait. Thank you so much. Maybe hit like button while you're down there as well. That tells the algorithm you want more stuff like this. Today, I don't know what we're gonna do, but stay tuned and we'll have fun together. A Goofy movie turns 30 years old. They made an entire documentary about it on Disney Plus called Not Just a Goof, I think. I haven't seen it, but I did watch the documentary they made in either 95 or 96. And they mentioned about how they wanted to make a different kind of Disney movie. So they took one of their existing cartoons, Goof Troop, and decided that they would make that into a movie. However, they wanted to take out a bunch of extraneous characters and a little annoyed they took out Peg. Don't we love Peg? Peg is everything.
And there you see the result of your little economic experiment.
Oh, Pete, you're always such a kidder. You really shouldn't do that. Yeah, we love Peg over here. So they took her out, and Pistol, the daughter, and several other characters, and they decided they just wanted it to be a story about Max and Goofy. But then I believe it was Jeffrey Katzenberg who stepped in and said, we don't want a silly movie, we want a movie with heart. So you can watch the documentaries and find out all about that kind of stuff. We're not here about any of that today. We're here because they made the movie. It was great. The soundtrack is amazing. Do you want to know why the soundtrack is amazing? Because you just watched a Broadway musical, but in cartoon form. In a Broadway musical, anything can happen. Pretty much there are no rules when it comes to what can happen on the stage because your feeling of disbelief is supposed to be suspended. Just like when you watch a cartoon, when you watch theater, it's just supposed to be, of course this could happen. Like cats dancing around a trash can that sing, of course they do. Phantoms kidnapping women and taking them to the underworld to make her fall in love with him, totally believable. So in a cartoon, it's the same thing, but you still have to have world rules. Like the Little Mermaid could not survive some of the explosions that Goofy can because it's Goofy. You just go with it. You're just like, yeah, of course. His legs can stretch to Kingdom Come because it's a cartoon. Same with theater. You know, we can have amazing things happen in theater and we totally buy it because it happened on the stage. That's also why some things work on the stage and don't work in a movie, but that's a different video. This one is a cartoon musical. It has all the bones of a Broadway musical, but please, I'm begging you, don't do this Broadway. Never put this on the stage. It has to be a cartoon. Same where you can't take certain adaptations of the stage and turn them into a movie or vice versa. You shouldn't always take cartoons and put them on the stage. Anyway, the Goofy movie as a Broadway musical in cartoon form is absolutely perfect. Let me explain. If you have never seen the Goofy movie in your life in the past 30 years, spoiler alert. First off, you need a great cast. You gotta cast the right people. Obviously, Bill Farmer is our Goofy, and he is just phenomenal. He took Goofy's voice that the original creator put to it, but then he put his own spin on it and started to adjust it over the years, and now we only know what Bill sounds like. I mean, it's his sound, which, by the way, even when he's talking, he basically sounds like Goofy. So it's almost like he took his own voice and just tweaked it. Now that is exactly what Jason Marsden did when he got the role of Max, who was a 14-year-old kid. So he decided to make his voice crack because he has, changes. And also it just added to the character's insecurities. Brilliant job, Jason. And he just pitched his voice up a little bit. It's his voice. He just pitched it a little bit, which is why he can still sound like Max. Clever. Rob Paulson is the voice of PJ. PJ is Max's best friend. Now, fun fact I saw on YouTube, Rob Paulson was talking about coming up with PJ's voice and how he just decided to make his voice sound insecure, but also he wanted him to have kind of a, oh gee, man, and stuff kind of sound. But when he was experimenting with voices on camera, he made Yakko's voice from Animaniacs. Animaniacs wasn't around yet. The phenomenal Jim Cummings as Pete. Jim Cummings, the man of 1,000 voices. Anything Jim Cummings is in, I want to see, basically. But Jim Cummings is the voice of so many things. He took over Paul Winchell's role as Tigger. He took over Sterling Holloway if you needed Winnie the Pooh or Caw in anything. Of course, he was Darkwing Duck. I mean, so many voices. But he was Pete here, and of course, he was Pete on Goof Troop. And Pete is just the best villain. I mean, you don't like him, but you like that you don't like him. It's just, he's great. I love Pete. I don't know, there's something about Pete. And can we just say, makes me love Peg even more because Peg is the only person on Earth Pete is afraid of. Just saying. Love it. And they left her out of the movie. Probably because she'd just be too fabulous. But they did give us a new redhead, Max's love interest, Roxanne, played by Kelly Martin. Who else grew up with Christy? Remember the Christy series? Or maybe you saw her on Hallmark Channel. She was Mystery Woman, I think. She owned a bookshop and she worked with Clarence Williams III. I believe that was his name. And it was a really cute series. Anyway, Kelly Martin is the voice of Roxanne. Now, put a pin in that. I love classic literature, so I have to ask. Roxanne. Is her name Roxanne because of Cyrano de Bergerac? Why? Because Max is insecure and he has a nightmare at the very beginning of him looking like his dad and acting like his dad, which comes with some facial deformities in his nightmare. Cyrano de Bergerac is the man with the large nose, and that is why he feels like he cannot win Roxanne. But he uses a guise through Christian. Christian loves Roxanne, and so he decides to help him woo her. Spoiler alert, but you should know that by now. Everybody had to read that. Anyway, could Max be using Powerline as Christian because he dresses up as Powerline? Modern day Cyrano de Bergerac? I don't know. But I think it's funny that her name's Roxanne of all things, and that he has that nightmare at the very beginning. Interesting. And then we have Jenna Von Oy playing Stacy. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. I love Stacy. She is so no nonsense, and she's like, I'm over this. Love her so much. She is Roxanne's best friend. Okay, so we have all of our main characters. I left out the principal and, a couple other characters, but they're kind of extraneous to my point. We have Powerline.
Powerline is voiced by Tevin Campbell, and he does a wonderful job.
But he's not really a central character. He just gets on stage and sings. He's awesome. And I would love if Disney World or somebody made like a Powerline concert. So I think Powerline is really, really cool. I just don't see how he's really important to the plot other than Max says he's going to be on stage with him, and, he uses him for his lie. To open a Broadway show, you need the establishing number, also known as the opening number. That is the number that just brings you into this world. For example, Les Miserables has Look Down, or you could do Fiddler on the Roof has Tradition. Hello Dolly has Just Leave Everything to Me. I mean, you're getting welcomed into this world so that you can suspend your disbelief for a few hours. Well, in a Goofy movie, we have After Today, which is a really fun number because it does two things. It's our establishing number and doubles as our I Want song. Can you think of another Disney film that did that? I'll give you a few seconds. It's Belle, Beauty and the Beast, the song Belle, the 7-minute song that Menken and Ashman weren't sure if it would actually get put through. Yes, it's Belle. It doubles as the I Want song and the establishing song. Everybody gets to tell you about Belle and how they feel about her and how you are welcomed into this world, and this is the world that you are seeing, and also how Belle feels about all of this. So we open with Max getting kissed by his dad on the front lawn, and everybody's seeing it, and of course he's immediately embarrassed. And so he opens up with this, not anymore. After today, things will be different. And we get to see all these different characters that we pretty much never see again. And we get welcomed into this colorful cartoon world. I say cartoon as both as the medium and as the feeling. Suspended disbelief. Now, we get to also hear what Max wants. He wants Roxanne to notice him. That's what he wants. This is what his goal is. He doesn't want to be like his dad, and he wants Roxanne to notice him. Okay, we now have established what our world is, what we're doing, and what our protagonist, Max is the protagonist, even though it's called a Goofy movie, Max is the protagonist, and we now know what he wants. Remember, the movie opens with Max's nightmare. So his nightmare is that he turns into his dad and that Roxanne thinks he's a beast, basically. And that she'll, never want to be with someone like him. So you have that. And then you have his I Want song / establishing song. We now know what this entire movie is going to feel like. All in about 5 minutes. Pretty good. So we find out that Max's big plan is to take over the school assembly dressed as Powerline and basically impress Roxanne. As you can imagine, that doesn't go well when he doesn't have the brightest of friends, but they're loyal. But his song that he sings is a Powerline song, and he's lip singing it. Now, here's something interesting. Normally, there's like a background noise, somebody singing and we don't hear it, or there's somebody singing and we do hear it. But the fact that Max is lip syncing a song is interesting. It's kind of a weird dynamic, but you go with it because it makes sense, because the lyrics are exactly what Max wants: to stand out. He doesn't want to be, back in the shadows. He wants Roxanne to notice him. And what is the song he's singing? Stand out. Dressed as Powerline, he talks directly to Roxanne. Okay, so he's lip singing, but he's right in Roxanne's face, looking at her, trying to tell her how he feels through the lyrics of somebody else's song. That's pretty typical in a musical too. So it's almost his secondary I Want song. But it still means the same thing as the first one. Now he's just trying to actually go through with it, but not as himself. Again, the Cyrano-Christian kind of dynamic. Okay, if you haven't seen the movie, Max ends up in the principal's office. The principal calls Goofy and completely overreacts, scaring Goofy so much that he asks advice from Pete, and Pete says that basically he just has to, drill discipline into his son and keep him under his thumb. That's his big thing. Keep him under your thumb. And so Goofy is terrified that his son will wind up in prison or do something really destructive with his life. And so he doesn't want to see his son fail. He doesn't want to see his life go down the drain, which there we see Goofy as a completely loving, terrified father. And it's kind of a heartbreaking moment because he's not even asking Max what happened. neither person goes to the other and says, you don't understand, this is the story, or this is what your principal told me, now I want to hear what you have to say. None of that happens. Goofy decides to just listen to Pete, and Max decides that his dad would never understand him, so he's not going to say it. Just his, he's a teenager. My parents ruined my life, that kind of thing. So Goofy decides to take Max on a fishing trip, the same fishing trip that his dad took him on and so many goofs before them, because he figured that them bonding would put his son back on a better track and keep him out of prison, basically. Well, this ruins Max's entire plan, which was to spend the summer with Roxanne at the Powerline concert. Oh yeah, I skipped that part. He kind of asked her out because she passed by him in detention, and he kind of asked her out. So that to him, that was a date.
Now, he doesn't want to be rude, so he goes and he decides to tell Roxanne that he needs to break their date, date in quotation marks, and that he can't take her to the Powerline concert. But he panics because she's not happy because he basically broke the date like an hour after asking her. And he decides to lie and tell her that he can't go with her because he's gonna go to Powerline's concert in LA with his dad. His dad knows Powerline, they were in a band together, some big enormous lie, and she buys it.
She's like, well, maybe I'll see you and stuff. And plus, they're 13 and 14, so it's not complicated. It's not complicated. I like you, you like me, let's do things together. Ta-da! Boy, do I wish it was that way now. How simple would that be if we still went with that? Anyway. So Goofy is our antagonist. Now, Goofy has good intentions, and that's why I don't want to call him a villain, because he's not a villain, but he is our antagonist because he is preventing our protagonist from getting what he wants, which is exactly what an antagonist does. Now, in a big Broadway musical, you gotta have a flashy villain number. You gotta have a great one. It's gotta be memorable, and most of the time, it's the best one on the soundtrack. I said most of the time. There are exceptions. Anyway, they get in the car, and Goofy is trying to make the best of things, and he decides to tell Max his plan. Tell him his plan on how he thinks that this will be the greatest thing ever, and basically explains to the audience how he's going to prevent Max from ruining his life. Max is a frustrated teenager who just got taken away from his almost girlfriend, and so he's not happy about this plan at all, and he expresses it in song with Goofy. Super clever musical writing here. They sing together, but they're not harmonized. They work together song-wise, but they are not in sync or in harmony. Goofy and Max both are singing that one is displeased, one is happy, and the rest of the road just joins in, and you don't care, because by now you have been welcomed into this world, you understand how this world works, and you totally go with the fact that yes, everyone on the road knows this song. Oh, the song is On the Open Road. I think I forgot to say that. On the Open Road, which is one of my favorite numbers in the whole movie. It's so fun. Anyway, it's a good road trip song. Has anybody actually sung it on a road trip? If you have, gold star, because that is epic right there, and you are a true Disney fan. But, yes, so On the Open Road is actually a villain song. It is. It is telling our protagonist how they should go along with what our antagonist wants to do, because that will make their life better. And it's also preventing them from doing what they want to do. Think of Poor Unfortunate Souls. Think of Friends on the Other Side. All of these songs have to do with, you want to do this, but I can show you a way that's better. Because yes, in the theatrical world, he is now our villain. With an epic song, so at least he gets that. After a while, we have Lester's Possum Park, which I know is some of my friends' absolute favorite number in the whole thing. And actually, Jason Marsden recently said that that's his favorite number in the whole musical, so that's fun. It's just a fun, bouncy number. Sometimes musicals throw in numbers that really have nothing to do with the plot, but they just give you more world building and how ridiculous it is, or how, other characters function. Think of Les Poissons from Little Mermaid, you know, the chef's little silly song that has nothing to do with the story. It's just fun. And would it really be Little Mermaid without it? No, it wouldn't. Why did they cut that? Phony King of England from Robin Hood? I mean, again, world building, but not too relevant to the plot. Broadway examples would be like Mama, I'm a Big Girl Now from Hairspray, or It's Too Darn Hot from Kiss Me Kate. So sometimes musicals just throw those in. And then we have a long amount of no music. Why? Because at the very end of the Possum Park, Max blows up at Goofy and they have a big fight. Why have no music? They do this in musicals too. Why have such a big break from music to no music? Because you're trying to create an atmosphere. What atmosphere? Stress. You just had a huge fight. No, we're not going to sing about this. No, we're not going to express our thing in musical anger because we want the audience to take this seriously too. I mean, yes, you can have songs that really build up that feeling of, oh my goodness, I am so unhappy right now. I totally feel for that character and stuff. But this is a serious moment. This is a heartbroken dad and a ticked off son. So what do you do in that situation? No music. Because it makes the audience feel uncomfortable, which is exactly how our two characters feel. Uncomfortable. And then they have a lot of chaos. When they meet up with Pete and PJ in the RV park, Max tells PJ what happened with Roxanne, and PJ's like, how on earth are you going to get away with this? And Max goes, I have no idea. And then, of course, Pete is telling Goofy that he needs to be harder on his son and not let him get away with stuff as much, and Goofy decides to go with that advice, and they go fishing. This is important because in this fishing lesson, he teaches Max the perfect cast, which actually comes in handy later. During their fishing lesson, it gets interrupted because they accidentally find Bigfoot and they get trapped in a car. While they're trapped in a car, though, they have time to start to try and bond again, and they start talking a little bit, and it's a very nice scene, and of course everyone remembers Hi Dad's Soup. It's such a cute little scene. While they're trapped in the car, Goofy falls asleep and Max looks at the map, and he happens to notice that if he just changed a couple of things, that instead of going to Lake Destiny, they'd actually head towards LA where the Powerline concert is. And he's very tempted, and he does it. He also writes a postcard to Roxanne to let her know that he lied, but he tears it up after changing the map because he decides that he's going to lie to both his dad and Roxanne now. Always works out when you lie. The next morning, they end up at a diner. Yeah, we don't know how that happened because Bigfoot threw Goofy's keys in the forest, but somehow Goofy was able to drive to a diner. I guess he hotwired his car or something. Anyway, while they're in the diner, Goofy sees that Max is miserable, and he decides that instead of being hard on his son, he's going to give him responsibility, and he makes him in charge of the map. How convenient, because Goofy hasn't seen that Max changed the map. In fact, he even states that he's not even going to look at the map from now on. It is all Max's job, and Max gets to choose all the fun little stops they make along the way. This actually adds to a really sweet little montage scene, and the music in the background gets happier because now they're getting along and they go to really fun stops. And I have to add this here.
Okay, this is from the montage of when they're doing father-son things together, but I just had to put this in there because it's the world's largest yarn shop, apparently. Come on, I'm a crocheter. I have to put this in here.
Anyway, they're really getting along and they make a stop at a motel, which just happens to be the same motel that Pete and PJ have decided to stop at. And then we have the scene in the hot tub, which is such a heartbreaking scene. Pete finds out, because he overheard PJ and Max talking, that Max changed the map, and he tells Goofy about it, and Goofy refuses to believe it. He even defends Max and says Max wouldn't do something like that. I trust my son, which is really heartbreaking because in the next scene, he doesn't mean to look at the map, but the Max falls out of the glove box and he decides to look at it, and he finds out what happened, and oh my gosh, he is a changed Goofy. It is really sad. Oh, that scene is so heartbreaking. Because he just defended his son. Oh, it's awful. Ugh, tears. Oh my gosh, he just defended him. He said, my son's not like that. I don't need to be that way with my son. You know, you don't understand our relationship. And then he finds the map and figures out Max has been lying. You don't need a musical number for that. You just see it on his face. And then, of course, they have the moment, which is, which direction do I turn the car? Because Goofy has found out that Max is lying and he's testing him. And of course, he finds out Max still wants him to go to the Powerline concert. Even though Max talked with PJ and he's been feeling a little guilty about it himself because he is lying to his dad and he doesn't love that. He's a good kid. He doesn't love that. But he feels like he needs to live his own life at 14, but whatever. But he feels like he needs to live his own life, and so he does. He tells Dad to turn towards the Powerline concert instead of the lake, and then their car goes off into a waterfall, and they're floating in the middle, and sitting on top of a floating car, again, suspending your disbelief, and they have it out. They realize they need to compromise. And then we have a love song. Yeah, it's not a whole new world or Once Upon a Dream or anything like that. It's not between two partners. It's between a father and son, because there's many kinds of love. And one is family.
Pretty much every Broadway musical has some kind of love song, whether it's father and daughter, brothers, family, friends, romantic partners. It doesn't matter. Every single one has some kind of love song. One thing that's beautiful about love songs is how vulnerable characters can be. And if the song is done right, the audience completely feels everything these characters are feeling. That's exactly what happens in this song. Nobody Else But You is a really beautiful love song between a father and son. In this song, as in the rest of the movie, Max is sung by Aaron Lohr. But Bill Farmer does all of Goofy's singing because he wanted it to sound like Goofy. He says no one else can sound like Goof. And you wouldn't want it to sound perfect. You want it to sound like Goofy is singing it. And Aaron does a really good job at matching how Jason does his voice for Max. So I think it's a really good pair. I just love that they insisted that it sound like Goofy. It sounds so much more authentic.
Father and son learning to compromise. Not only that, musically, now that they have decided to compromise and understand each other, they're in harmony. Literally, musically in harmony, and the characters are in harmony. Musically in harmony as the characters start to compromise. Stop. Brilliant! I love this kind of stuff. I'm sorry if you don't, because I think it's fascinating. The song Nobody Else But You, which is just a beautiful song, and if you have not seen Bill Farmer sing it with his actual son on stage, you need tissues though, because he's singing it with his real son, and it's just... Anyway, that was for a little concert. I'm so glad they did that, but that was so sweet. Anyway, but Goofy and Max are trying to compromise on the facts that Goofy is a dad and he can't let go of his son, and he's never going to be out of his life. And his son is like, I love you, but you have to let me live my own life. And of course, Goofy is like, yes, but there are still rules, and it still hurts me when you lie to me, or why didn't you just tell me what happened, or all of those kind of feelings. Jason Marsden actually said it best. He said that when you're a kid, you side with Max. And when you're an adult, you side with Goofy. Because you see it. When you become a parent, you can see all of those sides. When you're a kid, you see all of their side. You see all of Max's arguments and everything. And it's like, hey, that makes sense. That's why compromise is important, especially in this story. They need to work together, or one, they're not going to survive this waterfall, and two, they aren't going to survive their life. They're going to be out of each other's life, and neither one of them truly wants that. Now, Pete and PJ are another story, and, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if PJ left home at 18. We don't actually know what happens to PJ. We know he goes to college. Thank goodness.
After this song, they have now compromised and they are now talking, and Max tells Goofy exactly what he did. He probably tells him what happened at the school too, but we know he tells him what happened with Roxanne. And Goofy decides that, well, obviously, you need to tell her the truth. And as they're having this really sweet heart-to-heart moment, Max notices that they're about to go over a waterfall. Well, this is a very tense and action-packed scene where Goofy tries to save Max, Max tries to save Goofy, and then Goofy is falling. Max throws the fishing rod towards him and he grabs it. Unfortunately, he slips. And this is actually heartbreaking when you think about it, because that is not a Goofy yell. That is like a human-sounding yell of, this might be the last time I ever see my son, or his, like, I'm trying to say I love you, but he's falling, so he's screaming. And Max immediately picks up the fishing rod, and what does he do? He does the perfect cast to try and save his dad, and it works, and it's just so beautiful. He was paying attention. And he saves his dad, and his dad goes the perfect cast. It's so cute. So now Max and Goofy are free falling from a makeshift parachute, and they hug, and it's very sweet. But now Goofy decides that obviously Max has to get to that concert, and he has to be on stage with Powerline. How are they going to make that happen? They don't know, but they decide to sneak in and figure it out.
Okay, so they get to the Powerline concert because Goofy wants to help Max impress Roxanne. He's like, there's got to be some way we can sneak in. There's got to be some way you can show up on stage. You know, he wants to help him with his little dream because he cares about his son, and I think that's really sweet. Powerline is singing the song Eye to Eye. Yes, I know, probably the most famous song from the entire movie, and so many people are singing it and doing the fun little dance and everything, and it's so fun. But Powerline is singing Eye to Eye, which is important because that is the moral of the entire show. Now, a closing number, a big finale number, usually does that. It usually closes it up but reminds the audience why you're here. What story were you here to see? What message are you supposed to learn from this? Finale numbers are either really showy or really poignant, and sometimes they're both. In this case, both. Eye to Eye is not only a great song, but it's an important message. Now that we are seeing eye to eye, if we listen to each other's hearts, we'll find we're never too far apart. And maybe love is the reason why, for the first time ever, we're seeing things eye to eye. How perfect is that with Goofy and Max? Not to mention that music is just great. But chaos ensues, Goofy and Max end up on stage, and Roxanne got to see him on stage. So Goofy helped Max achieve his goal. The antagonist and the protagonist, instead of destroying each other, worked together to create a common goal. They both got what they wanted. Goofy got a road trip with his son, and Max got to impress Roxanne.
Max decides he has to come clean with Roxanne, and he does. He tells her what really happened, even though she saw him on TV. And the very end of the movie ends with Roxanne and Max planning a date for the next day because he's going to do something with his dad today. And Goofy falls through her roof and says hello. It's a very silly ending, but very sweet.
Can I just say that a lot of people say that, oh, well, Max doesn't actually get the girl. They planned a date. They're going on a date together in the future. How is that not getting the girl? All in all, the Goofy movie, as I have just proved to you, is a perfect Broadway musical. It has all the elements, and they all work together. Now, it may not be some, cinematic, really deep piece or anything. It may not be a Les Miserables or an Into the Woods or something that really makes you think psychologically and everything. But movies don't always have to do that. Broadway doesn't always have to do that. Sometimes you can create a very simple story and get really great results. Not everything has to be complicated. Not everything has to be deep. Father and son going on a road trip together. One is figuring out adolescence. One is trying to figure out how to give his son freedom, but at the same time not let his son ruin his life. Yeah, okay, fine. Max also wants the girl and stuff, but that goes along with adolescence, so there. That's the entire plot. Sounds pretty perfect to me. Thank you so much for watching this little deep dive into a very funny, fun movie. If you've never seen a Goofy movie, hope I didn't just spoil it for you, but if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it because it is a really great message. It is a really great movie, and it's just fun. And of course, there's fun, quotable, memorable lines. There's an amazing soundtrack, as I just proved, and the story is just simple but perfect. Thank you for joining me for another Film Friday. If you have any requests for Film Friday, please leave them down below. Maybe I'll do them, maybe I won't. You don't know. Want more Disney content? Check out these amazing creators down below. You won't be sorry. Where's she from? You'll have to check out my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, life happens, yarn helps, and spoonies can stitch it up too. Bye.